I'm Dr. Jodi A. Dashore. In this series, we will be highlighting what I call as complex autism. In some children diagnosed with autism spectrum disorders, there can be underlying medical conditions that are often missed, and usually because no one is looking. Studies show the effect of these underlying medical conditions can be quite catastrophic and affect multiple systems in the body. The clinical manifestations or the symptoms of these are often difficult to distinguish from the symptoms associated with autism spectrum disorders. It is important to note that the physiological damage effects of these pathogens and biological toxins or biotoxins are usually neurologically and immunologically manifested, along with other systems of the body being affected as well. A thorough investigation using targeted clinical protocols, along with appropriate laboratory testing, gives us a clear picture of what we are really dealing with and if this clinical presentation of autism has any root causes, which, when addressed, significant alleviation of symptoms or relief from symptoms can be achieved. Our goal is to speak to parents and caregivers of children diagnosed with autism spectrum disorders from many different cultures and countries around the world in an attempt to raise awareness and to educate. We will also discuss the importance of all natural, plant-based, and herbal medicine options for treating any underlying medical issues with great clinical outcomes.
Thank you for joining Master Herbalist Dr. Jodi A. Dashore, Director of the BioNexus Health Clinic and BioNexus Herbals, on the BioNexus Health Podcast, where we explore and share information and stories about recovering and healing from chronic and environmental illnesses such as mold biotoxin illness, Lyme disease, autism spectrum disorder, fatigue, Crohn's and colitis, mast cell activation syndrome, PANS, and more. Please help us grow our message by subscribing to our podcast channel and sharing the podcast on your social networks. For more information, visit bionexushealth.com.
Information within this video, audio, or text, collectively known as the podcast, has not been reviewed by the FDA. Nothing within the podcast is intended as or should be construed as medical advice. Information is for general informational and educational purposes only. Consumers of the podcast should consult with their healthcare practitioners for medical recommendations. Seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider. Do not disregard the advice of a healthcare provider based on any information from the podcast. The information within the podcast may contain information concerning dietary supplements or over-the-counter products that are not drugs. Our dietary supplement products are not intended for use as a means to cure, treat, prevent, diagnose, or mitigate any disease or other medical or abnormal condition.